I'd like to think that I have pretty decent instincts now when it comes to knowing who has bad intentions, but I haven't always been as cautious or as observant as I am currently. When I was in high school, I always felt so ugly. I had low self-esteem and high anxiety, which was really more of the problem rather than my looks. So if anyone of the opposite sex even gave me a little bit of attention, I would start to like them. I was pretty innocent despite how desperate I was, having only kissed one boy. So when I was 17 and a college guy put interest into me, I immediately clung to him. I was on this app way before Tinder, and I met a guy who lived 7 hours from my home city. His name was Brandon, and he was gorgeous. Blonde hair, muscular, blue eyes. He played soccer for his university and was 19 years old. Honestly, he wasn't my usual type. Back then, I really liked guys with darker hair and eyes. In fact, I still do. But he was really handsome and really kind in our interactions. He would shower me with compliments and talk to me all the time. I lived alone in an apartment with just my cats, which, in and of itself, is a long story on its own. So when I would get lonely or scared, he was always there to comfort me. A month into talking, and he started asking for pictures. Not ones of my face, but obviously more risque. This was nearly a decade ago now, and I didn't really have a good concept of stranger danger on the internet. I mean, smartphones had really only been around for a few years previous to this point. 17-year-old me who was so insecure, just wanted to make him happy because I couldn't believe I had gotten a guy like him. I was ready to do anything he asked. I never sent naked pictures. I was too insecure for that. But I would send pictures of me in my bra or in my panties. He would shower me with compliments saying just how sexy and beautiful I was. And I fell for every word. With time, I began to get upset though. I wanted to see him. I would always send him pictures when he asked, but he never sent me any. He would show me body pictures of him with his shirt off or things of that sort, but the pictures were always of bad quality, as if someone was using a camera phone back in 2005. When I started getting too persistent, he promised that he would start calling me. And for some reason, this appeased me, and we'd talk many times a week over the phone. After a couple of months, he began to get increasingly sexual towards me, telling me what he wanted to do with me and how badly he wanted me. This made me nervous since, like I said before, I had only ever kissed one other boy. But it also made me a little bit excited. It felt good to be wanted by someone that I had really grown to like. This was all during the first semester of my senior year of high school, and I was going to turn 18 the next semester, in late January. As it got to be around Christmas time, he started to talk about coming to my city to see me for my birthday. This had me really excited, since I wanted to see him in person so very badly. We had first spoken about me going to him, something that he had insisted upon, but I chickened out and said that I couldn't do the drive alone. It was an excuse because I really didn't want to go to an older guy's house and stay with him alone. My own home made me feel just a bit more safe. We planned on a weekend after my birthday, and everything seemed fine. But then one day in my choir class, my best friend, an exchange student from Germany, was talking with me about my online boyfriend. I was telling her about him and showing pictures, and she got rather unsettled. "Have you seen him on video?" I told her no, and she gave me a quizzical look. "Something doesn't feel right here. There's no way he's real. Not that you couldn't date someone like him, but he just seems too perfect." She was very direct and blunt with me about it, something that my other friends just weren't. So I took her words deeply. And now, all these years later, I'm still grateful that I did so. I immediately asked him for a picture of his face. He made up some excuse about how he couldn't take a picture right then. So I persisted, asking every single day. Finally, my instincts were kicking in, and I was getting scared. I told him I wanted him to video call me he refused. I fought him on it for hours one night, telling him that if he tells me the truth, I won't be mad. But once again, he refused. I put the name that he gave me into Facebook, determined to find him on my own if he wasn't going to give in. But nothing came up. I texted him telling him that I couldn't find his Facebook, and that's when he gave in, giving me a completely different name this time. I remember just feeling cold as I read this new alias. I looked up the account and everything he had told me was a lie. His name, his face, his age. He was 25, not 19. I was terrified. I thought I had been talking to someone just a few years older, which is legal in my state. But he was almost 8 years older than me. And that's what caused me to immediately stop texting him. But that's when he started getting obsessive. He would text me dozens of times a day, calling me over and over again. He would beg me to answer him, to give him a chance. Then he started threatening me to answer. He told me that he had saved all of my pictures. He kept them all and told me he would send them to my friends, my family, and anyone else that followed me on Facebook. He was saying how he would show everyone me in my bra and show our text messages talking about what he would do to me sexually if we met. Looking back on it, all of that was much more damaging to him than me. But I was young, stupid, and afraid. I hated my body so much, and I was absolutely terrified of people seeing it. So I started talking to him again, although more reserved and cautious this time. The days inched closer to my birthday and the weekend that we had planned. Our messages had become bland and short since I was trying to make him lose interest in me. But he never gave up. If I took too long to message, then he would pick up threatening me again. My birthday fell on a Monday that year, and he sent me all kinds of messages. I don't even remember what I did that birthday. I didn't have many friends, and I never liked to celebrate, so it was likely something small. When Friday hit, I got a text from him that morning saying that he was driving to my city and that he would pick me up from school. I was terrified. I had lost a lot of my friends the semester before, so they obviously had no clue of my situation. Out of desperation, I went to one of my guy friends who I hadn't talked to in a couple of months and spilled everything to him. He was a longtime friend of mine, so he was sympathetic and promised to follow me home that day. I went straight to my car, ignoring the mass amounts of text saying, "Where are you?" and "I'm here." My friend drove behind me all the way to my apartment, which he had no clue I was living in, and stayed with me as I cried for a while. I turned my phone off, and my friend left later in the evening. Brandon had no clue where I lived, but I was still paranoid. What if he somehow found me? Only 3 people knew where I lived, 4 now with my guy friend, and Brandon didn't come into contact with any of them. When I finally turned my phone on, he was right back to threatening me again. I was exhausted and fed up. I started spam texting him back, yelling and venting. I told him how stressed he had made me and how what he was doing was wrong. I told him to send the pictures, that I didn't care anymore. I started to attack his character, telling him how no one could love him if he hides who he is, then chooses to treat people like shit when they catch him in the lie. Thankfully for me, he had enough care for me to take my words to heart, or whatever it was. He apologized, told me that he deleted all the pictures. He swore to leave me alone as long as we could still talk every once in a while as friends. I reluctantly agreed, even though I knew he was lying. I talked to him for about a month after that, short responses, until he eventually gave up. Even now in my late 20s, I still see his name appear sometimes. I blocked his number and deleted him on everything, but his name still pops up on Instagram or Snapchat when he's trying to re-add me. He's the reason that I won't give my name or my picture out. That's a lesson that maybe I should have learned earlier in life, but I suppose that's something that's better late learned than never learned at all. First off, this story happened almost a decade back. I'll jump right in because it's long. I got home from work one day and logged into Facebook to find a message from someone that I didn't know. It was too long ago to remember verbatim, but it was along the lines of, "Hey, I know you have no idea who I am, but I've been trying to decide what to do for a few days and figured I had to let you know what's been going on. Someone's been catfishing me using your identity for over 2 years now, and I just found out about it last week." The sender of the message was pretty clearly shaken up and understandably was experiencing a mix of emotions. According to her, she had met the imposter online a little over 2 years prior to her writing this, and that they had been engaged in a pretty intimate long-distance relationship for a majority of that time. The imposter had created a Facebook and had, over time, reposted almost all of my photos with their own captions to them, including a good amount of art that I'd drawn that they had taken credit for. They created fake profiles for a good amount of my close friends and family too, just so they could comment on the photos of themselves to make the profile seem more legit. The funniest part to me is that although most things in my real life seem to be mirrored in this fake profile, I, a straight male, was instead portrayed as trans. I think the main reason for this was that the sender of this message and the imposter would actually speak on the phone. The imposter turned out to be a female in the end, and therefore needed a reason to justify her more feminine-sounding voice. The sender of the message was justifiably both angry and creeped out, and wanted to find the catfish. She started asking me a lot of questions about my life, but phrasing them like, "Is your sister's name such and such? And did you go to this high school?" Some of this was clearly information that anyone could glean from a quick browse of my profile. But then she asked, "Is your best friend so-and-so?" Which struck me as odd, since despite this person actually being my closest friend, and who I spend the most time with, we have barely any Facebook photos together, and most are from a long time ago. Then she asked, "Were you adopted? And are your half-siblings' names ABC and XYZ?" These final questions sealed the deal for me, since I knew for a fact I'd never posted about being adopted online. The sender of the message already had an idea that this person had known me in real life, but this served to confirm it for me. The sender of the message had contacted me shortly after confronting the imposter for the very first time. I guess after 2 years, they'd finally become suspicious of the fact that the imposter wouldn't show their face. I have no idea how it took this long for them to figure that they were being played, but I'm glad they finally decided to give the ultimatum of, "Show your face, or I'm cutting you off." I'm pretty sure that this is the point where the imposter admitted to being a catfish, and that she'd been using the identity of someone she had a crush on in high school before hanging up the call. I was given the URL so I could look through the profile myself, which was up for about 2 days after I saw it, before it had all been removed. It was definitely really bizarre. The imposter had posted more than I ever had on Facebook, and it genuinely seemed like they lived a pretty involved double life online as me. Almost everyone I'd posted photos with on my real profile would then have their own fake profiles created that had enough content to be genuinely convincing, so they could be tagged in and validate these new photos. Some of these profiles seem to have gone and made their own real friends as well, and I wondered if any of those were used to facilitate even more online dating deception. Either way, the amount of time that this person had spent fabricating their alter ego's online presence was pretty shocking. The whole time I'd been crawling down this Facebook rabbit hole, the sender of the message was looking through my real profile. After a while, she sent me a message saying, "Did you take these photographs?" and showed me what I remember as a black and white photo of a barn or something to that effect. I hadn't, which was weird since everything else on the fake profile originated with me, and she'd noticed the discrepancy. We both tried reverse image searching with no luck. Then, either through a stroke of genius, or somewhat suspiciously, I really couldn't tell. She thought to flip the fake number the imposter had written into the fake FB profile around in reverse, and a Google search came up with a landline that belonged to the home address of a girl that I'd gone to school with. Real me was even Facebook friends with real imposter's profile, so we both went snooping around and found the photo that she'd claimed I'd taken, which pretty much confirmed to me that this was indeed the imposter. I'm pretty sure there were more indicators to the sender as well, but I can't remember. I thought about messaging the girl for a while, but decided that it probably wouldn't lead to anything good. At the time, my thoughts were definitely, let's not meet. I talked a few times with the sender of the message just to try and decompress a bit, but honestly, I just wanted to distance myself from the entire situation. Also, I held my own suspicions for the sender as well. I figured maybe it was imposter's one last-ditch effort to try and talk to me. Although, when it was all over, the sender seemed to be eager to leave all this behind as well. So, maybe not. Either way, it was a truly strange experience. I felt freaked out, in addition to feeling violated. But I guess there was a small part of me that was flattered by it. I had a lot of mixed emotions, I'm not gonna lie about that. The weirdest part to me is that I'm a really approachable person and would have definitely been willing to talk and probably be friends if this person had just approached me instead. Although I'm still not sure if this was done due to an obsession for me, or if this person felt like I was just a suitable image to base this fabricated persona off of. I remember talking to her probably twice throughout high school, and really didn't have a very good idea of who she was, other than the quiet hipster girl. If either person involved happens to hear this story, I'd definitely be happy to talk now. It's been years, but I've gone from being very put off to finding myself wondering why this person chose me over a myriad of other more attractive or interesting online people to base their other life off of. According to the sender who contacted me, she'd probably spent more time online pretending to be me than she actually did going about her own life. I have a tumultuous history of addiction, and I've had plenty of my own escapes, which is why it's always fascinated me that someone would want to pretend to live someone else's life as a means of doing that. Because at the end of the day, the person pretending to be me had no idea that I spent my time daydreaming of being a different person as well. It just goes to show that no matter how much you wish you were someone else, chances are that person has plenty of their own reasons to want to escape their own demons for their own reasons. Thanks for listening. I'm posting this from a throwaway because this is something from my past, and I'm not too proud of it. So from around the ages of 12 to about 16, I was addicted to playing massively multiplayer online role-playing games, or MMO RPGs for short. They were literally my life, and I considered my online friends very real, and I loved them. Except I lied to them practically the entire time. You see, I was pretending to be a girl, but not for the fun of it, but to target single teenage boys online for in-game currencies, gear, and whatever helped me progress through the game. Anyone who is an avid MMO gamer knows exactly what I'm talking about. Those amazing outfits you have to buy with real money, those materials that you had to buy with real money to progress through the game, and to be able to go up against the best of the best. I was addicted. I wanted all of it, except I couldn't get all of it. I couldn't buy it. My parents wouldn't agree to foot the bill, nor did I have a job as a teenager. So I devised a plan from around the age of 14 that I would pretend to be a teenage girl and get into seemingly realistic online relationships with teenage boys and try to coax them into sending me these things. I used the names and pictures of girls I found on their personal profiles on places like Flickr and PhotoBucket. Usually, when the boy decides to go snoop because he thinks I'm lying, he would find them and resort to believing that it was really me. They were already too desperate. I even voice chatted with some of them. Even though I was a boy going through puberty, my voice was still high-pitched enough to carry the lie. It was the perfect formula to trick them, all into liking me and gifting me. On my first MMO, I tricked a boy into sending me an outfit by pretending to be his girlfriend. This boy seemed madly in love with me, and since this was my first time trying this out, I genuinely felt bad for him. But my idiotic self decided that it would be alright for me to take advantage of this situation. It won't really hurt, right? At least that's what I thought. This huge identity scam that I created only escalated from there. I tricked so many other guys, teens and possibly even adult men pretending to be teens. It was horrible. I hated myself, but I couldn't stop. I needed all these gifts in these games. This is where the story actually starts. When I was 16, the last guy that I ever talked to was a 23-year-old Russian guy who we'll call Mark. I met Mark on a very popular shooting MMO. We hung out all the time and had many mutual friends within the game. We voice chatted with a group of people multiple times on Skype while playing. I never once decided to scam him because he was a free player, meaning he never spent money on the game. He also seemed like a genuinely nice dude. But when he asked me out, I tried to take on what I considered the biggest challenge in the scam. Will I be able to get a free player to spend on a game for me? Because I was always so well-liked online, and many people knew who I was, and generally, I was categorized as a very nice girl. My ego was soaring. I knew I could do it. I accepted to date him online, despite him knowing that, as a 23-year-old man, he was speaking to what he thought was a 16-year-old girl. In the beginning, he was pretty normal. He was always trying to be sweet and romantic. We played together all the time. He did all those lovey-dovey kisses and hugs texts. We even had more adult-themed cyber interactions. I, being the piece of shit I used to be, just played along. It was all going really well. Too well. However, I noticed after a week or two that something was not right with him. He seemed obsessive. He seemed manipulative. He always talked trash about my other friends from the game and pressured me to unfriend them. He would always tell me that they talked the same mess behind my back. He would call them sluts, skanks, and many other horrible names. He would even send his version of proof, which I later found out were all photoshopped in-game text chats. He absolutely despised any guy I ever talked to when we were playing in a public match together, and I stupidly went along with it all. I didn't want him to not trust me. That way, it would be easier to get whatever it was that I wanted. Then, the perfect moment came for me to make Mark send me gifts. I had to do it. This new outfit the game introduced was too bomb to pass up. I started off by telling him the new game update was pretty cool, and we talked about it for a while. He suggested that we both get the new outfit, but I told him I had no money, and I totally would buy it for both of us if I could. That's when he suggested that he would steal the money from his mother, a single, hardworking woman taking care of 2 kids. For a second, my mind told me to just let it happen. This was when I immediately snapped out of it. I felt horrible. I decided to log off right then. I shut the laptop to rethink what I've done all these years. How many of these guys weren't part of well-off families and were likely using or stealing their parents' money? I couldn't stop pondering about this all day. And the next day, when I logged back into Skype at night, I was immediately slammed with walls and walls of text from Mark, asking me where I went, why I wasn't answering, how I'm such a slut who went to talk to some other guy that I know, and many similar things that you hear nice guys say to girls that give them a chance, then flake on them for being weird. I was sick to my stomach. I hated myself, and I hated Mark. I tried to play it off and say my electricity cut off for the entire day, but he didn't believe that. He didn't want to believe it. And at that point, I told him that I wanted to break up. Things only took a turn for the worse, though. He voice called me, and I picked up. He was hysterically crying and shouting. I tried to remain calm and tell him that I didn't want to play games with him anymore. I told him that I was getting more depressed than I already was and felt my addiction to games wasn't helping at all. That I should go out and see the world more, which was all true, outside of my fake persona. He started shouting at me some more, calling me all kinds of names. This 23-year-old Russian man was threatening what he perceived to be a 16-year-old girl. Everything he said devolved into something worse. He started talking about how I ruined his life. He told me that he would end it all if I ever left him. I started crying, told him not to. We got into a heated argument, and I could hear him breaking stuff all around him. I was still crying when I told him that I had to go. He told me not to leave, or he would end it all right there and now. He turned on his camera and put a razor to his wrist. I could see clearly all the leftover marks from old cuts on his arm. I was in fear. He couldn't see me, but I was stuck there watching a man threaten to cut his own wrist live on cam, all because of me. I quickly told him that I had to go. I cried in my room that entire day, realizing karma finally got to me, and that this is what I get for scamming people. I was a mess, and I sobbed until I eventually passed out on my bed. The next day, I was unusually calm. The day itself went by normally. I sat in front of my laptop but didn't open it. I tried to think of a rational solution to all of this. I didn't want someone to end their life just because of me. There was no rational solution. I just had to say goodbye to him and block him forever. Whatever happens, happens. I opened up Skype and was slammed by walls of text once again. This time, I didn't read anything, but I saw that he had sent some photos. These photos were graphic, and they obviously came from the night before after I ditched him. I felt sick and overwhelmed once again, but I took a deep breath and went into the next conversation as calmly as possible. When he got online, I told him that I was breaking up with him. Mark again told me how he was going to unalive himself if I ever dared to leave. I calmly told him that if he was going to, then why didn't he? He didn't answer, clearly shocked by the question itself. He continued to attempt to threaten me. I told him that he could find another girlfriend, but he only continued his barrage. I was fed up. I tried to reason with him, even was on the verge of revealing that I was actually a 16-year-old boy all along. But I decided that that likely wasn't the best thing to do. I regretfully told him that he should go end it all, so no other woman has to go through what he did to me. Then I blocked and deleted him. I deleted my Skype and never logged back in. Subsequently, I did see him online a few times on the games that I played. He tried to contact me again, but I continued to ignore him. He eventually deleted me off his friends list, and we never chatted again. At this point, I stopped pretending to be a girl and told all my friends online that I was a boy all along, and then continued to apologize profusely. The girls felt betrayed because they really trusted me. Most of the boys who I lied to felt betrayed as well because they liked me. But none of them really made a big deal out of it in the end. I realized how much of an asshole I was at the end for even coming up with this plan, but decided that I wasn't as much of an asshole as a 23-year-old man who threatened to unalive himself live on cam in front of a 16-year-old girl for trying to break off a pedophilic, abusive relationship. Like I've said over and over, I know that I played my part here, but Mark, if you ever hear this, get fucked, buddy.